And of course I've just realised that I've started streaming without my usual start screen. Which I normally put the start stream screen up, of course, whilst things are getting going, and whilst I just sort out all my various screens here at this end. So I shall be with you all in a moment. When I persuade Twitch that I don't want it to show me my preview, which of course it always ignores until it's played the advert. Oh, tonight it hasn't. So just move a few windows around. I'll put them all in the right order so I can see them, and right, ready, so to speak. Put the camera in a slightly different position today, just so that I hopefully don't keep hitting myself with it, which is what I was doing the other day. No, I'll do. I was just trying to decide what to do then on this. Got a little bit of white I want to put in here and some other stuff. So I'm just trying to decide whether or not what to do first. Where's my reference picture? There we go. When you're doing this from scratch, without somebody having already done the kit for you, so to speak, then of course you have to look at it and decide your own colours and what bits you're going to do and what bits you're not going to do. And I'm doing that on the fly rather than it all being predetermined for me. Right, so linkage stuff looks probably white. We'll do the hook in a grey, light grey. Oh, we want black under the wheels there, around that wheel set. That should, yeah, wheel set there, and in on that cross beam. Okay. At some point we're going to put the rail head in as well, I guess. Yeah, right. So I'm back to using black, I think. There's an area here between two bits and the back of this wheel that I want to be black. And there's possibly going to be some areas back there, but we'll deal with those later. So I'm going to work in this area here. So good evening everybody. Sorry, I'm just working out what I was going to do where and when. I can. Let me zoom this in as well a bit. I'll move the camera away, I can zoom in further. Okay. So what the pen is it's a hollow needle. Okay, that's effectively all that this is. It does have, you know, the pen has a place to hold the thread, but it's not really important to the operation at all. I could just leave the thread loose around. With some of the bigger versions of this I can use a ball of wool, which just rolls around on the floor. So essentially it's just a hollow needle with a handle. Okay. I can determine how long that hollow needle is by sliding it in and out here, but essentially again all that does is just make certain things easier, and I'll come to that again in a minute. So I'll just set that. So what happens when you use this needle? Here I am, I'm out of frame. Hopefully you'll see it on that one. It's a hollow needle. The thread comes down through the centre of the needle and out of the side of the needle. Okay. So what happens when you push this through the material is the friction on the side of the needle, between the thread and the side of the needle, hold the thread in place, and as you push the needle in it draws more thread down the needle and out the side, and the amount of thread that it draws is controlled by how deep the needle goes through the material. Then when you draw it back, there's nothing holding, so the needle is dragging the current end of the thread, if you like, back through with it, creating the loop. I'm off screen, but I'm trying to keep it on camera. So pushes through, draws back, creating the loop, and then the material, as you take the needle out completely, the material, the gap, the hole that it went through, effectively closes up and grasps the end of the thread, so you're left with a loop, and then it just repeats as you go through the next one and drag it back, it creates a second loop, and so on. So that's effectively how it works, just by the friction which holds the threads in place. So these two are slightly different because I'm holding it, of course. So that's essentially how this works, and it doesn't matter what thread I'm using, it doesn't matter really what material I'm using in that as long as the material will stand up to having the needle push through it, then and is sort of a reasonably tight enough material to actually grasp the two together, and then you just end up creating lots of loops. As I say, the amount of thread that's drawn out when you push the needle in is determined by how far you push the needle in. This has kind of got a natural end stop because it hits here. So when I push the needle out, it gets longer because there's more to this end stop. But equally, I could ignore that completely. If I only push this needle halfway through and draw it back, I get a thread which is a loop which is only a short loop. But yes, it's as you say, a simple design but very effective. 1, 2, 3. The only thing that's a little bit awkward actually about this design is that's the natural way to hold it, and that there is the release for the depth gauge. If I push that by accident, the needle disappears really quickly, which is sometimes not quite what you're after. And I've done that more than once. It's a little bit annoying. 3D Bloke, good evening, welcome to the studio. Sorry, just catching up. And She Devil as well, welcome to the studio this evening. So hopefully, there we go, you can see what I'm doing. Colour rendition is terrible. But anyway, that's the camera for you. So I'm going to colour this in black, this area around here in black, and the back of the wheel in black. The whole front of the loco is also black, but we'll deal with that at another time. So how is everybody doing today? I've been, well, apart from the fact I've been at work today, but once I got home I've been still busy trying to get a website up and running. In some ways it's surprising just how much work goes into creating a website. Even a fairly simple one. It's taking me tens of hours so far, but hopefully I'm getting closer to actually having one finished, so that I can show off some of the other stuff that I've already done. And put some static information up there about some of the crafts as well. Ah, so you've nearly finished Free Reaper. Are we likely to have the opportunity to see it on this stream, or is it going to take a bit longer than that? I've acquired a pair of smaller scissors. Hopefully these are sharp enough, since the yellow ones I was using went walkies. Oh, they're not bad. Just deciding how to tackle this one. I'm going to do it this way. We'll be on the stream. Ah, okay, well, hopefully we get the opportunity to take a look at it. The light's causing a bit of a bloom in the camera. Yeah, the camera's working rather hard. Okay, VP, you're welcome to pause a teaser. You're trying to get the Win version of OBS up running. Spectacular style. Oh, of course you're running Windows version, aren't you? That sounds like a real euphemism, She Devil. Ah, dear. Okay, so the teaser is the sign, but that isn't necessarily what the end image is, I'm taking it. Yeah, well, Free's got somewhat. Yeah, he's got an Apple. We've got a Mac running Windows, which isn't as bad as before. Where I think he had a Mac running Windows, running OBS. I was hoping that was it. Otherwise, I was thinking there isn't a lot of modelling in just the sign. There are some, I know, but not a lot. Unless the GPU's partially died, I guess, or one of the outputs has died. I'm surprised. Or doesn't it care which? Oh, mind you, it still can be. Monitors, the monitor GPUs these days get so complicated. The way in which they work, and you can still have failures that will not let you run 2 or more monitors, but will let you run a monitor on any of the outputs, which is really confusing. And I can remember the first time I ran multiple monitors on an IBM PC, and it was an original IBM PC with a VGA card in it, and that was a 640 by 480 VGA card. I think it was VGA. And then the second monitor was a green screen text only monitor, 80 by 25 lines text only green screen. Oh yeah. Yeah. A GPU flashed to look like so a Windows GPU flashed to look like a Mac GPU running Windows drivers modified for Mac. It is a bit funny, is that? I'd be hard pressed to keep it straight in my mind. Never mind what's running what there. You do like running interesting configurations there, don't you? I take it you couldn't actually, in the end, couldn't get it to run Mac. I think last time you said you were having problems getting it to actually run Mac. I was about to say Mac OS, but it's whatever the OS is these days for Mac machines. OS X, is it? Yeah, I can imagine. Oh, it does, but oh yeah, that's right. You said it doesn't recognise a network card. It's a pity you can't just virtualise a lot and run run both of them in a virtual environment. Because that system you've got, I think, would certainly be powerful enough to do it. VMware, but they now that is decidedly odd because, well, mind you, if you're running VMware on Mac, it relies on the Mac recognising that the card is there, because if you run Windows in VMware, VMware provides a software implementation of the network card, which Windows has to recognise the software implementation. Has to recognise what hardware it's emulating, shall we say. So I don't think VMware would provide one naturally if it couldn't see the host one. But then again, you might be able to force it to do that, but it still wouldn't communicate with the network. I know I found it got weird as well, because I actually run a server here which is running, it's actually running Linux, but it's running a special implementation of Linux, which is running I forget what the thing is, but it's actually running, it's not running VMware, but it runs something like it as sort of almost a bare metal container system. So I'm running about 5 servers on the one machine, one of which is Windows, and there's 4 Linux machines of various flavours running, and it gets really weird sometimes. Half of them have got, effectively think they've got different network cards to the others, and so that means they're slightly differently configured, and it gets interesting, shall we say. But I still find it fascinating that I can get 5 different machines in one bare metal implementation, and it isn't even really a powerful machine. It's only got 2 cores. And of course, getting, mind you, you'd have a problem trying to get OS X running in a container. I suspect Apple specifically put checks in there to stop you doing that. Yeah, and then of course it doesn't work because it's a Macified Windows. you might end up having to get yourself another land card. Well, luckily most of them aren't that expensive. Well, they can be really expensive, but you don't need gigabit or anything like that. So they shouldn't be too expensive, and then Windows should be able to recognise it quite cleanly. Okay, let me catch up on. Okay. I was just thinking, if you're having problems with things like drivers for it, then it sometimes is easier with something like that. You can tear your hair out, but it's just as easy sometimes to just get a cheap LAN card. And yeah, somewhere around here I've actually got a full RAID card. That's a card that manages the disk drives in a PC and lets them work together for redundancy purposes. The only thing is, it won't work in my server because it doesn't like the specific motherboard that I've got in the server. So the card is basically useless in that, just on that specific motherboard. And so I'm keeping it around because one of these days I'll get another server, and then I might be able to use it because it wasn't cheap, and I would like to be able to use the redundancy, but there, that's hanging around. These were sort of these aren't specifically sewing scissors. They were just we needed some at the airport, and so they were sort of just what happened. Can't have been at the airport. Must have been on holiday then. Some point anyway, we needed a pair of scissors. We weren't at home, and so we picked these up. They're sort of a one or £2, so $1 or $2, and they're curved. But I just borrowed them because I had a pair of large kitchen scissors because I couldn't be bothered getting my own embroidery scissors out. But these are actually working quite nicely. They're really cut quite well for cheap scissors. I'm rather surprised. And if I was about to say, if absolutely necessary, it still has a screw slot in there, but it's a really fine screw slot. Actually looks like it's been screwed through and then hammered over, but they're nice. They work. Yeah, I'd never thought about doing that before. My scissors have been straight, and it kind of doesn't make a great deal of difference. But as you mentioned there, you know, it is nice to actually hold your fingers up off the material, but actually hold the scissor so that the scissors are actually parallel rather than digging in, so you don't accidentally cut anything else, which is great. I'd never thought of doing that. How's the duck punching going? Well, this is the back of it, Steve-o, which of course by now you will have realised that the mallard is the mallard, not a mallard. So that's the front. I'll zoom this out so it can be a bit better seen. So in theory, the fastest steam locomotive ever recorded. Not, we're getting there. They do seem to be really nice, she-devil, but as I say, they were really cheap, so they may not last very long. But so I've done the back of the wheel. And I didn't want to do that bit black. Just around there at the back of the wheel, yes, but now, well, it's black now. It won't be detrimental. It's all in shadow, so how's it going, Steve-o? You had a lovely double O gauge. Actually, so did I, but as a kid, was it the mallard? Yeah, I actually had the mallard as a kid, a Hornby. As a kid, but it was I'm after silver. It was the three rail version of the Hornby Double O, so really old. I've still got the locomotive somewhere, but unfortunately I've lost the tender. Don't push it. Yeah. Well, of course, the stream title was I won't say, well, yes, deliberately misleading, shall we say, or provocative, punching the mallard. But I wasn't telling any fibs. I don't want to do that. I want to do that. There we go. Change to grey to do a little bit of grey work, and then I'll do some white, and then maybe blue. I caught your latest YouTube series today, Steve. It's quite an interesting way of doing it. West Country Sports. Well, yes, possibly. I like that, yeah. It kind of does sound a bit that way, doesn't it? Oh, now I'm going to have to change the stream title for tomorrow. Just in case anybody thinks we're going to be doing welly wanging or something at the same time. Alright, so you're going to give me something else to watch tomorrow, is it, when that's going to come out, Steve? For those people who don't know, Steve-o there as well as streaming on Twitch. Also does YouTube videos. I must admit, Steve, I don't know whether you do any of the like Call of Duty stuff on YouTube, but I know you do ETS 2 and Farming Simulator videos. So if anybody's got any interest in certainly in those, Steve is well worth checking out. Yeah. So I'm just trying to envisage there how the hook looks when there's something hooked over the top of it, as to what's over the top of what. By which, Steve, you can probably guess which ones I don't actually look at, to be honest. That's no reflection on how good or otherwise they are. It's I find those sorts of videos I've actually got to concentrate on more, which I can't do while I'm at work. So, oh, you've got a new job! Oh, congratulations! I'm going to miss your streaming then, I guess. But if you don't mind saying, what have you got? What job have you got? Nice to hear you've got a new job. Dear. I don't know what I'm going to do now. Trainee master fitter. Okay. And I refuse to sing the jingle. We've got one just down the road from us, and they're quite a friendly. There's a couple of them work there, and they're quite a friendly group of people. So I'm assuming that's everything from tyres to exhausts and everything as well. Interesting. So you've been practicing on Car Mechanic Simulator, have you, Steve? That's a bit of a change, though, isn't it? From desk-based management to actually sort of overall based stuff, but it's certainly better. Well, I was about to say better than nothing. I'm not sure. That's obviously down to your own opinion, but well, I hope you like and enjoy it. Alright. Now this coupling is probably really grey in real life, but given that this now is sort of a museum engine, it's going to be highly polished, this coupling. So it'll be shining, so that's why I'm doing it in white. So it looks like really shiny metal as opposed to something dark and dirty like it would be if it was in real use, or was at the time when it was in real use. It would have been as black as coal. Oh, that's kind of nice if they're saying that you already should be working on the good stuff, or the higher level. Let's have a look at what Fear Reaper's done. Mechanical spider. I see where the title comes from, the teaser came from. That's an interesting one. Definitely is an interesting one. Oh, I see. It's a series of pictures. In a rotation. I like the detail of the wires going down through the legs. Because the only thing Fear Reaper is there's nothing to move the legs. The wires look really good, but I'm looking at it and I can see the legs are jointed. I can see the rod that goes through the legs. Sorry, through the legs. The joint, so to speak, the hinge. But there's nothing to drive them. That's the only thing that's missing from that. But of course you only see that when you look at the close-up images. But I like that. It's quite a nice thing. Reconnaissance unit. I'm guessing though that's supposed to be sort of really spider size, is it, or is it supposed to be something something larger? Yeah, I can't really think. I mean, there's all sorts of things these days that could do that. I mean, when they make them, they're effectively sort of artificial muscles of some kind. So you either see things like hydraulic or pneumatic rams on the outside. Yeah, that's true, it's a prototype. Or you'll see things like cords running inside the outer covering but along the joint. So when a cord runs over the top and you tighten the cord, it tends to make it extend like that, and when you run it underneath, it tends to make it do like that tendency. But that's kind of how the things work. Or you can get artificial muscles, which are either wire, which has a tendency to do memory wire. It's a bit like when you heat it up, it tends to move into a particular position. Or they've got I forgot what it is. It's some sort of cord that when you pass an electric current through it, it shrinks. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm being picky. And as you put it, it's a prototype, so which is perfectly fine. You see, you do using my trick now is you're the artist, so you can make up your own story, and it's a prototype's a damn good story. Do it that way. Okay, sometimes it's a little bit you try and decide which is the better way to do something. I'm gonna start here, even though it's a little bit awkward to make little short lines. I'm going to come up this way because actually it doesn't really matter. If I do it longwise, what I'd like to be able to do is to do it such that I end the row at this end, so I can just carry on with the rest of it. And I think I'm probably going to manage to get 3 rows in. So 1, 2, no, start at the bottom, 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'll do it longwise. It saves sort of less trouble. When you can do sort of a fairly long run of thread, it's a little bit easier. Although I've got a feeling I'm not going to get three in here. No, I'm not. Oh well, what I was hoping to avoid was cutting the thread off, because cutting the thread off takes time and I'm wasting a bit of it, and I hate wasting a bit. It's just one of my little quirks is wasting. I intensely dislike wasting material. Why when I'm airbrushing I can't quite bring myself to mix large quantities of paint. It's always sort of 1 or 2 drops, because that's usually all I need. start all the way down. Let's do this a long way. Then I may do the front, or at least some of the front, which is all black. So this little bit here is the coupling. It's what they actually on the older railways is how they actually couple the trains together. All done manually. Nowadays they're all automatic couplings, but back then the drivers or whoever they could get to do it for them, I guess, had to get their hands dirty. Okay. Right, okay, so if I'm going to do black, this dotted line I've done here because it's black on the side and it's black on the front here, but it's really shiny black, and so in sort of daylight the corners like this, depending on the angles of light and things, but the corners will reflect light back. It's a sort of a semi-streamline, so it's rounded, so this would be, you know, maybe short grey or even white, and same along the funnel here. I sort of dotted them in so that I'd remember, and also to try and decide whether I actually want to do that. I probably will maybe use the dark grey, or even actually dark blue. No, dark grey. So black on the front, dark grey in that space there. And in practice there should be a dark grey across there as well, because the black wraps around slightly into the blue, but I may not bother with that. I may just go straight into the blue on that edge there. And it's the same when we come to the top of the engine actually as well, because again it sort of curves over the top. And it would be reflecting a heck of a lot of light back, so it in sunlight it will be almost white, but I may not go that far. Okay, right, let's put some black back in this needle. Generally speaking, it's not too hard to thread these needles. This one actually tends to be the hardest, because it just doesn't always want to go through, and then when it does get through it always wants to come back out by itself. But there we go. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, cheapskate again, pulling some of the cord back to save on the thread. Okay, we'll do around the bottom of the buffer and do some bits in between. Got to remember to get a little bit of black in there. Now, I've mentioned it before, but you can do these punches, stitches, however you want to describe them, in any order, any way you like. The only real main concern you have is to make sure you get a sufficient number in the space to give the material, sorry, the loops on the other side enough support, so they don't look ragged or sort of untidy. Oh, that's amazing, She-Devil. Welcome back, Steve. That's amazing. You've this. Obviously, somebody was watching, rang you so that you could ask Reaper about something you posted. That's amazing. Fill in around here, and then I'll do more of the body. No, you didn't. You didn't miss anything, She-Devil. If anything, that's probably just explaining something, but nothing particularly significant in that respect. And the legend said, "Good evening. Welcome back. Nice to see you again." Okay, so The pussycat just came in and surprised my wife, who is at the other side of the room, and he leapt on her knee, but he did so making sure he was going to stay there by extending his claws, and his claws are quite sharp. He's been doing it to me for the past couple of days. He just uses me as a stepping stone, but he digs his claws in on his way through. Also remember to keep my fingers out of the way of this needle going through here. Right, we got up to the lettering that I put in last night, so what I'd try and do is go around it now, and we'll see just how much of it actually shows up as lettering. And how much of it just shows up as a gold blob. It's amazing. I'm now trying to remember how a letter N looks. Because of course I'm looking at it backwards. Ow. Sorry, I'm not keeping up with the the chat. I both like and dislike spiders myself. I don't mind looking at them like that, or even real life ones like that, and in zoos and things where you see them. I'm just not keen when they're around me. There's some amazing creatures and what they do, and how they catch things with webs and all the different tricks and things that they use. Actually, one of the things I dislike about them really is the webs. I think they're amazing things. I just don't like having to getting the webs on my hands, because they always you can't get rid of them. The stick, obviously, because that's what they're meant to do. Cut that off a minute. Well, I guess some of the spiders can't they, with the venom or venom. I know that half the time spiders are more like like a lot of animals, are more afraid of humans. They don't go around just biting them just for the sake of it, but it's still somewhat frightening to think that that's what they can actually do. Right, just for the fun of it, what I've just done there is just outline all the letters. Let's see what it looks like now on the other side when we turn over. You can sort of, I'll zoom it in a bit, you can sort of see so you can sort of see the number 44 something. I mean, I know that says 68, so because I've just punched it, but I can sort of see it. Oh, that's not too bad. Joe's07, good evening, welcome to the studio this evening, nice to see you back again. So that's not turned out as bad as I thought it might. I thought it might just be a bit of a mush, but at least it's partially readable, which helps. Okay, so now all I do is start filling the rest around it. I'm not sure that you would. I suppose it depends on the poison, but if you're not going to end up coming out of it, there may be the spider may well be the more pleasant option. But anyway. Let's just say that both of them are equally nice to look at from a distance. Well, as long as there's distance from me, She Devil, I'm not that fussed whether it's closer to you or not, but oh dear. Micah Sax D, or Micah Sax D. Welcome to the studio. Thank you very much for following. That is most fantastic of you. Thank you very much. Well, that's an interesting statistic, Fear Reaper. I was trying to remember actually. I don't think it's a spider. What the most venomous animal actually is. I think it. For some reason, I think it's a fish, but I can't actually remember what it is. Pufferfish. It's not the pufferfish itself. The pufferfish, I think it's its liver or one of its internal organs is there. Twitchipedia. Because is it? I mean, I know there is a highly poisonous fish, which is a Japanese delicacy, which is they don't cook it right. Or if they don't clean the fish properly, then its poison does seep into its skin, and then even cooked, it's extremely poisonous. It's not a delicacy I'd be trying out anytime. Oh, well, that's a pleasant thought for you, Reaper. Should we move on to something a little bit more nicer to discuss, I think. So what's your latest project, She-Devil? I think the either the dancer or the soldier was the last. The portrait was the last thing I remember you showing us. A sock monkey quilt. So is that like a quilt with sock monkeys on it, or just pictures on the quilt of sock monkeys? Or perhaps it's the one of the adverts we have for, I think it's PG Tips Tea, is a sock monkey. You'll have to get started soon then, She-Devil, otherwise you'll run out of time. I'm doing this slightly off frame, aren't I? There we go. Ah, okay, yeah. Oh, okay. So it's not a christening rug then. It's a two-year birthday quilt. Let's have a look. Oh, that's pretty. I like that. That's very nice. Swinging on the moon. And with the blanket. Yeah, that's really nice. Thank you for showing it, Shudo. Ow! I actually sort of almost missed myself there, so... The ow is kind of a reaction to just almost hitting myself rather than actual pain. Just zoom the camera out a little bit, that way I don't have to try quite so hard to keep things in frame. That's an sorry, I'm holding an interesting shot of the wheels there. That looks quite realistic in a way. Pity it's the back and not the front. Of course he meant you, She-Devil. Well, of course, he can't disagree with me now. Mind you, he probably will now, just for the sake of it. But getting a picture of the finished quilt before you finish it—that's going to be some challenge, She Devil. Unless, of course, you happen to have a DeLorean stashed away in the garage. That's true. But at least it's partially the way there. Oh yes, how's that? A little while ago when we were talking, I think you just bought a new machine, hadn't you, with a larger throat? How's that going? I must have been a bit confused then. Maybe you were talking about looking at getting a new one then, She Devil. Since I messed up the transferring the pattern a little bit just in this area, I just got a free hand view where the edge stops. I know you meant $5,000 there, but a machine for $5 wouldn't be bad, would it? Wow, that's a fair price of machine, is that, She Devil? Nemi Sister 0928. Hi, good evening. Welcome to the studio this evening. Well, since you've asked chat, Nemi Sister, I'll let them answer you rather than telling you myself. Yeah, well, Fear Reaper's quite close there. You doesn't have to make pillow covers or anything out of it. You can do, but I just use it just purely as an art form. So it's a single. It just becomes like a framed picture afterwards. Although smaller versions of this you can turn into things like Christmas decorations and things like that as well. And bigger versions of it you can actually use as rugs. So you can actually sort of throw them on the floor and walk on them if you're so inclined. Although again, decorative rugs like that tend to be used sort of as throws or even wall hung. tell you what, and I'll turn it over, because what you're looking at here is the back side. So there's the other side. So I'll just cut this off and I'll just turn it over and give you a view of the other side. So that's what, zoom the camera out, we're really rather close to that. So that's what it's looking like at the moment on the face side. And when this is finished, the whole of this will be covered in some shape or other. Probably grass down here, some sort of sky, and some steam and smoke coming out the stack. So I shall carry on a little bit longer. So just for a while I'll keep a fairly wide angle on the camera. it is. It can be really relaxing. You need to concentrate a little bit on what you're doing, obviously, because I'm supporting the material underneath with my fingers, and I'm jabbing a sharp needle through the material. But it's very easy just to get lost in doing this, and there's kind of a competition I play with myself while I'm doing it as well, and that is. You might be hearing the crunch from this needle as it goes through, and what that's doing is it's breaking threads when you hear that crunch. But occasionally it'll go through without any effort at all, and there'll be virtually no sound. And that's when the needle has pushed the threads to one side. Now, I'm sort of doing it a few times while I'm doing this. And at that point it's really smooth and really fast to do, and it's all to do with the rotation of the needle, in rotating it into the right position. I sometimes play a game with myself while I'm doing this of trying to find that position and keep it silent for as long as possible. And oops, something's gone wrong there. You see that amount of thread didn't actually stay through, so I sort of pulled the loops out. Usually what that means is something's jammed. In this particular case it seems okay. So all I'll do is just leave that to one side and just carry on, see if I can get it to stay in. Seems like it. Sometimes the reel at the top will catch, and when it does that, the thread doesn't unravel. And you end up pulling out the loops that you're punching in. Quite apart from it being relaxing as well, it's quite a good craft form for people who feel that they don't have patience, because it develops relatively quickly. You know, it's some things you can spend, some crafts you can spend absolutely hours, and you only make relatively small progress. With something like this, in a couple of hours, you can do a fairly substantial amount, as we have done here. We've as well as some fiddly bits, we've done almost the whole front of this locomotive. Probably spent about an hour doing this black on the front. just got that right angle, and the needle is slipping through really easily at the moment and virtually silently. He says, and then it suddenly starts crunching again. Okie dokie, so that's the main front of the locomotive. There's a steam whistle in probably brass, which will be a yellow sort of golden colour here, before it then continues into the top of the locomotive and the chimney. Not quite sure what I'm going to do with the chimney, because it's very black, it's very shiny, so it reflects light almost like a mirror. So on the reference pictures of this locomotive, whenever you see it in sort of bright light or sunlight, the top appears almost white, and sort of certainly up around the chimney, this area looks almost white. Don't quite know whether I'll do that. What I might do is put some grey in there, rather than making it just completely black, just to you know, the back end here where it's catching the most light. I have the same sort of dilemma as to what to do when I do the rest of the locomotive, because that's blue, and again the top end of it is on all the pictures just reflects so much light that it goes almost white. I may put some light blue in, or on the other hand I may not actually bother. I may make it just blue. Yet to sort of decide that, which is kind of why I was intending to stop short here at the moment, so I can do some of the rest of it without having to think about that just yet. But I've mainly stopped there because it's 10 o'clock. It's just after 10 o'clock now. A few of those loops there have been pulled a little bit, not quite gone through as much. The material's pulled back a little bit, I can see. They're a little bit short. That won't be so bad when I put the put some more in. They will butt up against these, and you basically just won't see the won't see that short ones. But there we go. It's yeah, as I was saying, it's now after 10 o'clock at night, so that's about the end of the stream for this evening. Can you get a black metallic thread? Probably. This stuff is it's like it's quite a loose twist, shall we say. I don't know how. It's probably a 2-ply, but it's a bit like thin wool rather than cotton. So getting the right sort of material, the right sort of stuff, would be interesting. The manufacturer of this particular tool and these particular threads doesn't sell a black metallic, but they do sell like a nylon thread, which would show shiny, but that doesn't work so well with this. It works better on its own, and with it being a different type of thread, it uses a different needle, and it's actually better suited to smaller images than this. This is quite a large scale image. If I had to take the same locomotive and do it using the nylon type threads, it would be about a quarter of the size, but still have as many loops in it. But I could also use something like embroidery thread as well. So potentially I could get some real different colours if I wanted to. But it's kind of a nice, interesting challenge to see what I can do with the limited colour palette. But anyway, as I was saying, it's kind of reached the end of the stream for tonight. Thank you everybody for watching. If there's anybody that is watching that isn't following, I would of course appreciate you doing so, if you wish to do so. Or on the other hand, if you just like to follow me on Twitter so you can be notified when I go live. I do tweet when I go live. But on the other hand, again, you can just catch me tomorrow night, 8 PM UK, 1900 hours GMT, or 2 hours 15 minutes ago in whatever time zone you're in, would be 8 o'clock in the UK, and that's when I'll be starting tomorrow. So hopefully I'll see you all again. Thank you very much for watching. See you later. Bye bye.